The movers had just left, leaving behind the quiet, cavernous space of our new suburban home. Boxes were stacked like a cardboard city, and the air smelled of fresh paint and possibility. My wife, Sarah, was at the store getting groceries, leaving me and my 16-year-old stepson, Kyle, to begin the monumental task of unpacking that Kyle was a good kid. Tall, lanky, with Sarah's kind eyes and a reserved nature that had taken over a year to warm up to me. We'd found a rhythm built on a foundation of mutual respect and a shared love for Sarah. He was tackling his room, and I decided to start with the one box I'd been secretly dreading, the one labeled MISC Office. Buried beneath old tax documents and a broken desk lamp was a small, unmarked cardboard box. My heart did a little stutter step. I knew what it was. Inside, nestled in yellowing bubble wrap, was a stack of mini DV tapes and a dusty Sony Handycam. A relic from a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. Just then, my phone rang. It was work, a client emergency that couldn't wait. "Kyle," I called out. "I've got to take this. Can you just put this box in my office closet for now? Don't worry about what's inside." "Sure thing, Merc," he called back. I retreated to the relative quiet of the back porch, losing myself in the problem on the other end of the line. It was a good 45 minutes before I hung up, my mind buzzing with solutions. I walked back inside, the house silent. "Kyle?" I called again. No answer. I peeked into his room. It was empty, but on his neatly made bed sat the small cardboard box. The bubble wrap was unfolded, and the Handycam was connected to his laptop via a firewire cable I didn't even know he owned. My blood ran cold. "Kyle?" My voice was tighter this time. I found him in the living room, sitting on the floor, his back to me. The laptop screen was glowing, and the familiar grainy footage of my past was playing out in silent, juddery motion. He was watching me. A version of me from 20 years ago. I cleared my throat, and he jumped, spinning around. His face was a palette of conflicting emotions, confusion, intrigue, and a touch of guilt. "Mark, I'm sorry," he stammered, scrambling to pause the video. "I was just curious." The camera was so old school. I wanted to see if it still worked. My initial reaction was a surge of panic, a primal urge to snatch the laptop away and lock it all back in the dark. This was my secret, my deeply private history. But the look on his face wasn't one of judgment. It was one of genuine, bewildered fascination. "It's okay," I said, my voice softer than I expected. I walked over and sat on the floor beside him. "You just caught me by surprise." On the screen was a lanky 22-year-old with a mop of dark hair and eyes full of a fire I barely remembered. I was on a stage in some long-forgotten comedy club, holding a microphone, my body language a mixture of raw nerves and undeniable confidence. "What is this?" Kyle asked, his voice full of awe. I took a deep breath. The secret I kept from my new family was out. There was no putting the genie back in the bottle. "That," I said, pointing at the screen, "was me. A long, long time ago. Before I became a marketing consultant, before I met your mom, before any of this. I was a stand-up comedian." Kyle's eyes widened. "You? A comedian? For real?" "For real," I nodded, a sad smile touching my lips. "For about 5 years after college." That's all on those tapes. My sets, my bomb jokes, my few triumphant nights. It was my whole world. He hit play. The young me on the screen launched into a bit about the peculiar agony of trying to assemble IKEA furniture while hungover. It was a little rough, a little too eager, but the core of it was funny. I saw a flicker of a smile on Kyle's face. "Why did you stop?" he asked, not taking his eyes off the screen. "You're pretty good." And so I told him. I told him about the grind, the long drives to half-empty bars, the hecklers, The constant fear that the next joke would be the one that killed the room. I told him about the sheer exhausting work of trying to make it. And then I told him about my father falling ill, about the need for a stable paycheck, about the slow, quiet death of a dream that felt, at the time, like a luxury I could no longer afford. It wasn't a dramatic failure, I explained. It was a practical decision. I packed the dream away in a box, got a real job, and moved on. I never told your mom because, well, it felt like a story about a different person. It felt embarrassing, like a failed experiment. Kyle was quiet for a long moment, absorbing this. He let another clip play, this one of me doing a more polished, self-deprecating routine about dating in my 20s. This isn't embarrassing, Mark, he said finally, his voice surprisingly firm. This is cool. It's like finding out your stepdad was a secret agent or something. I laughed, a real, genuine laugh. A secret agent of mediocre punchlines, maybe. We sat there for another hour, Kyle navigating through the digital files he'd already transferred. He'd been more efficient than I could have imagined. We watched triumphs and train wrecks, and I found myself narrating the scenes, telling him stories I hadn't thought about in decades. The time I made a whole room of people cry with laughter. The time I totally froze and had to walk off stage. It was cathartic sharing this with him, but then we got to the last file on the desktop. It was labeled Last Set, the Comedy Zone. This is it, I said, my voice growing somber. My final show. I knew it was the end when I walked on stage. We watched. The set was fine, competent. But as the young me on the screen delivered the jokes, I could see the emptiness in my own eyes. The passion was gone, replaced by a kind of weary professionalism. The audience laughed in the right places, but it was hollow. The final joke landed, I took my bow, and the video ended with me walking off stage. The camera lingering on the empty mic stand. The room was silent. The weight of that final performance hung in the air. And then Kyle did something that shocked me. He closed the video file, opened his editing software, and dragged the clip of my IKEA while hungover a bit into the timeline. What are you doing? I asked. He didn't look away from the screen. His fingers flew across the keyboard. This bit is solid, Mark. The timing is a little off, and the setup is too long, but the punchline is gold. He trimmed a few seconds, tightened the pace, and played it back. It was better, sharper. See? He said, a spark of excitement in his eyes. It just needed a little edit, a modern touch. I was speechless. This wasn't the reaction I had feared. I had expected pity, or worse, indifference. I hadn't expected a collaborator. Over the next week, a new ritual was born. After school and after work, Kyle and I would retreat to his room. He became the director, the editor, the producer. I was the talent and the writer. We'd pick a clip from the tapes, and he'd use his digital native intuition to refine it, cutting out the dead air, adding subtle sound effects, and even finding royalty-free music for intros and outros. He showed me a world I knew nothing about, YouTube. People would watch this, Mark, he insisted one evening. It's vintage, it's authentic, and it's actually funny. We should start a channel. The idea was terrifying. Putting myself out there again after all these years. But the spark Kyle had fanned was growing into a small flame. The joy of creating, of making people laugh, was a feeling I had buried but never forgotten. We decided to take a chance. We created a channel called The Comeback Dad, a name Kyle came up with. Our first upload was the edited IKEA bit. We wrote a description together, explaining the backstory, a former comedian and his tech-savvy stepson rediscovering old routines. We held our breath and hit publish. The first day, we got 12 views. 7 of them were probably us. But then a small comedy blog found it and shared it. The algorithm, that mysterious digital god, smiled upon us. Views started to trickle, then pour in. Comments flooded in, not just about the jokes, but about our story. People were touched by the cross-generational collaboration. They loved the heart behind it. A local news station picked it up, doing a short segment on the stepfather-stepson duo reviving a comedy dream. That's when things went crazy. Our subscriber count exploded. The real shock, the moment that truly stunned us both, came about 2 months later. I was checking the channel's email, a task Kyle had delegated to me, when I saw a message with a familiar name in the subject line, subject, booking inquiry for The Comeback Dad. The Laugh Factory, Hollywood. My hands trembled as I opened it. It was from a booker at the legendary Laugh Factory. They had seen our channel, loved our story, and wanted to know if The Comeback Dad would be interested in performing a 10-minute spot at their weekly new talent night. I called for Kyle. I couldn't even speak. I just pointed at the screen. He read the email, his jaw dropping. No way. We were going to Hollywood. The night of the performance was a blur of nerves and adrenaline. Standing in the wings of that iconic club, the same club I'd seen on countless comedy specials, I felt 22 again. But this time, I wasn't alone. Kyle was my roadie, my tech support, my moral compass. He gave me a thumbs up, his face beaming with pride. And now, welcome to the stage, all the way from the internet. It's The Comeback Dad, Mark. The announcer boomed. I walked out, the lights hot on my face. The expectant murmur of the crowd, a sound I remembered in my bones. I gripped the microphone, and then I saw Kyle standing at the back, filming the whole thing on his phone for the channel. I took a deep breath. So my stepson found my secret stash of shameful home videos. I began. The room laughed. It